Have you ever been fascinated by dragons? They show up everywhere from France to China to Scotland, and even in the Mayan symbology. If there's nothing to it, how is it that these mythical creatures show up in so many unrelated places? Is the dragon frequency real? And more importantly, can it have an impact on your frequency resonance rising, or said differently, on your spiritual awakening? In this episode, we discuss what the dragon frequency is, how it can impact us, and what the role of the mystical is in spiritual awakening. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're talking about dragons.
Today, I would actually like to talk to you about something kind of offbeat, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot on the internet right now about dragon energy. And this is the year of the dragon.
Yes.
And there's like a double impact because it's a wood or a double dragon.
Double wood dragon.
Double wood dragon? Right. So for me, that's this stuff is really mystical. And yet a lot of people are talking about it. And I wondered, what's your thought on that? And does it impact our frequency resonance? Is there a point? Why do we care? Like, why would we be interested?
Yeah.
But there seems to be a collective interest in it.
Yeah. Well, I think we're talking about two different things. So one is the dragons themselves, which we can totally address later.
Yes.
And the other has to do with the mystical itself and whether or not that impacts our frequency resonance. And so before I even get into that, like, I think we need to define what the mystical is. Right?
Yeah.
Just so people know we all have an understanding of what that means. So to me, the mystical is anything in the unseen that people feel is fascinating, right? So the mystical is like, you know, if anyone ever read, like when I was a kid, I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I was fascinated by that book. Right? Or all those books, you know, and I'm sure like now, you know, the whole Harry Potter series, the reason that's fascinating because it's all about magic and wizards and the mystical, right? And, you know, I read The Hobbit and, you know, The Lord of the Rings, and it had elves and dragons and like all this cool stuff in it, right? So all that stuff is totally fascinating. And the question for a lot of people is that true, or is it just the realm of the imagined?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when we read these stories as children, want to experience that magic, you know, that mystical of the unseen. And is it possible to experience that for real? And then it sort of translates, I've noticed, when I work with different people as experiences that are non-ordinary.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, a lot of people associate it with like, you know, perceiving different beings or like, you know, being at portals or, you know, doing some cool spirit stuff. That's definitely not the ordinary.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would mean by the mystical.
Yeah. Because, see, for me, like, I get confused between what is mystical and non-mystical, right? Because this is like the dragon energy. This is the year of the dragon in the Chinese calendar. I am not even going to pretend I understand any of that, right? But it's obviously clearly a big deal in the Chinese culture.
Yeah.
And it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, well, is it mystical or is it real?
Yeah.
And if it's real, then how am I supposed to work with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny to me because when I was growing up, it all was imaginary. You know, that's how it was presented to me as a child.
Yeah.
This is the land of the imaginary, right? When you know, like knights and swords and wizards and angels and goblins and all that stuff, right? That's all not real.
Yeah.
Ghosts even, not real. But the thing is, or things like the unicorn, right?
Yeah.
Not real. But the thing is, now that I have the abilities that I do and the ability to perceive on different levels of consciousness, those things exist, but at a different vibrational rate from our normal, what we call physical reality, the density. So in order to access those different realms, you actually have to be high enough in your resonance to be able to perceive them. And some people, when they're kids or even as adults, see certain things. And depending on how centered you are, it can drive you crazy, you know, because it can drive you nuts. Like if you walk around and you're seeing things that other people do not, that is what we label as psychosis, basically, right? It's like that you're seeing what most people do not see, and you think it's real.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with people who have that, they don't have a strong center in space and time, and so they bleed into different realms, which is simply a different way of saying different space-time vibrations at which those realms exist, and they cannot tell which one is their dominant realm or their dominant space-time resonance. So they get lost and they can't tell what's real and they can't tell what's not. And it feels pretty damn real to them because it is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, I think, when they think of the mystical, they first of all think of it as imaginary. They think of it as only positive. Let me just tell you that the non-ordinary realm is not just positive. Not everything that is unseen is there to help you. There is a lot of things that are dark and that wish to harm you. And there are many, many things that are in alignment with pure source and wish to help you. Yeah. And especially as a child or even as an adult, it's hard to tell, man, which is which.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So to me, I think the mystical has so much appeal because, you know, if you're in the mundane and in the ordinary, it's kind of boring, you know? And it's somebody who has a lot of imagination. Listen, when I was a kid, I was told a lot all the time, you have a very vivid imagination. What I had was an ability to perceive things that most people could not. But I didn't know that. I was just told that I was making it up. But now I realize I wasn't.
Yeah.
I actually was perceiving at different resonances. I just didn't know how to speak about it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to experience that stuff, that fantasy. You know, I mean, the fantasy fiction market is huge, right? Even like, look at Marvel or like the superhero franchise. Who doesn't want to have special abilities and be able to do certain things and like disappear and like bend time and do all, I mean, it's cool sounding. So for us, I think as humans, the mystical has appealed to us because the ordinary is so boring. You know, it makes us feel small. It makes us feel like limited in many ways. And we're fascinated by all of that which we don't know.
Hi guys, I hope you're loving our conversation. Our discussions are designed to empower you to transform your life and the lives of the people around you. So please hit the subscribe button because it helps us to expand our reach and to empower more people. Okay, let's get back to it.
If a person is living that daily routine, and they're listening to all these other types of conversations of people that are having them experiences, right? Yeah. And I think that person really wants to believe as well. Like, let's say it's that type of person. Yeah. So I think as well, not just to escape the mundane, there's also this element of, well, is it real? I want to see it too.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of way.
What am I missing out on?
Yeah, what? It's like FOMO. You know, I'm missing out here. Like, how come they're seeing it and I'm not? You know? And actually, that's going to bring me back to another question I had when you were talking. So clearly, because you talk about it's a certain level of frequency resonance. Yeah. There must have been people in our past, in our history, that at some stage held that frequency resonance. Because you look through history, we've seen unicorns up on walls in Scotland.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen dragon images in
many
France,
cultures.
And so many cultures.
So many cultures.
So at some point, somewhere, at some time, there were people that were actually accessing that, right? Yeah. So, like, let's come back to, okay, so apart from escaping the mundane, like if you just want to see them for escaping the mundane or just want to see them because now you can believe for sure, right? But is there a point? Is there a point for us to be in relationship or in communication or something with that? Or is it just leave it well alone? Just focus on your frequency resonance.
Yeah. So it's interesting. To me, when I was first in my spiritual journey, I chased the mystical. Right. I wanted to have the experience. I wanted to see the higher dimensional order beings. Like, you know, I wanted to see the stuff the shamans were seeing. Like, I wanted to see it because I was like, that sounds amazing. Right. And I chased it, you know, I really wanted to have that experience. Now, though, I realize that the importance, to answer your question, is to raise your frequency resonance and to really become very, very centered at the core of you. And we talk about the 0 point, you and I, quite often. And the reason for that is because as your frequency resonance rises, which is really the thing that matters, because that's what allows you to rise in consciousness. When you rise in consciousness, it allows you to perceive more and more things, okay? Because your resonance is rising. And without the stability, you can lose yourself in these different realms, right? There are a lot of people who are clairvoyants who see things and go insane because they can't hold their center. They don't know where they are in space and time, and they go nuts.
Or
and that's what happens.
Really physically ill as well.
Yeah, because they're kind of being shredded into two different realms, like pulled into two different resonances, and their bodies can't sustain it.
Yeah.
That's what happens with a lot of people who channel, for example, because they're holding the resonance of what they channel, they're holding the resonance of their physical body. Those two things are not compatible. They're not internally strong enough to be able to hold it. Their bodies literally degrade. Like they cannot, they just get sick, and a lot of them will pass away. Okay, so that is why becoming strong internally is so important. So you know where you are in space and time, and you also can intentionally hold your own resonance, meaning you're aware of, okay, that's happening, but I'm aware of who I am, and that doesn't need to be in my experience if I do not wish it.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because for a lot of people, what happens is they can't control it. You know, so for people who have the ability to see or to feel things in the non-ordinary, a lot of times, especially as kids, they don't feel like they're in control of what's happening. It's terrifying. Yeah, and you can't get it out of your space. Yeah. And so the thing about having that internal strength, or that centering into the 0 point, gives you authority in your space. And that means that as your resonance rises, you recognize that you can hold your space. You can then, if you choose to, have these experiences, have them inform your experience in a way that's not scary and is positive to you, as opposed to just being like pulled into different experiences without like knowing why, in a way that's negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm still not feeling like, I'm not satisfied with the answer.
Okay. All right. Go for it. What's your next question then?
Well, it's really about, well, what's the point? Why do we care about these unicorns and dragons, and like, what are they going to do for us?
Yes. What are they doing for us?
Yeah.
Well, you can it depends on who you are. Okay. I know this is an unsatisfying answer.
Yeah.
Meaning, it depends on your own sense of intention, your own frequency resonance, and what it is that you hold as paramount for you.
Okay.
So if your intention is to only clarify your own awareness of your connection to pure source, then anything happens after that is kind of like gravy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's nice if it happens, I don't really care, because I care about that.
Yes.
That's my primary and only goal, actually, at least that's what has become for me.
Yes.
You know, because that is the relationship or the connection or your awareness, however you want to frame it, that to me governs everything.
Yeah.
And so if I never had an experience in the mystical, that would be fine. So for me, what happens then is when I do have experiences with the realm of the dragons, for example, which we did in Scotland, or different things, then it becomes beneficial for me, because I'm not having a relationship or a connection with them because I'm trying to get something from them in a way that I was before, because I was striving to have that mystical experience. And in that striving, it was weird, implicit in that I wasn't enough. Like I wasn't deserving of this thing that I was chasing with them, you know, that experience of the mystical. But now it's like, no, I know what my authority is. I know what my relationship is in terms of my awareness of my connection to pure source. Is it growing? Yes. Do I know everything? No. But I know that to me is the most important thing. And therefore, my own inner stance with the mystical has now changed, because I don't need to have it. It doesn't make me more worthy. It doesn't make me more awake. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm still not hearing
the question. Where the difference is. So if you're in the position where you're chasing it, right? Chasing that mystical, it doesn't necessarily do that much for your resonance necessarily, unless you're somebody with whom, within your own experience, you have an agreement to actually have an experience that will lift your resonance up, right? So meaning that somehow in the incarnation that's you're meant to have an experience with the dragon realm, which will catalyze an awakening process for you.
Yes, okay.
For example.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I'm, right, so that can happen.
That can happen.
Right.
You can also have something where you're not looking to have the mystical. And here you are, for example, on the Scotland retreat.
Yeah.
And you have no idea about the dragons, really. And you're here because you're here to raise consciousness and to help yourself in terms of your vibrational level rising, and also others. You're not really sure how, but you know that the ripple effect is important and you're called.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you find yourself with us in Scotland at this massive dragon portal on the Isle of Skye that I personally, as Karen, did not know was there until we got there.
Yeah.
You know? And so, and in that case, the dragons were really important because just to be really clear about who the dragons are all about power and about catalyzing transformation through the physical. That is what they are. And they are incredibly powerful beings. They themselves, just like us as humans, exist on multiple levels of consciousness. So, we think of the mystical as like they're like a thing, know, like
it's one layer.
It's like one layer. Like they're the dragons, they're always the same. It's like saying like humans are the same. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're all different. Well, the dragons also exist at different levels of consciousness. And what was amazing about our experience in Skye is I was able to, for the first time, sort of witness or experience them at different levels of consciousness. I didn't know that I'd only experienced them at a certain level of consciousness. And I was like, whoa, this is the dragon resonance as at different levels of consciousness. It was amazing to me in terms of the transformation that they can catalyze if the person's willing. They have a tremendous respect for power. Internal power, not over anything, but within self. So why we were so helped in that case is because that whole mastermind in that moment was aware of their authority. And the dragons have a tremendous respect for that. They're like, we are aware of our authority. So too are you. Fantastic. Let's work together. Let's rise. Let's see what happens when we work together. And in that particular GFC meditation that we did that day, in the Isle of Skye, under clear blue skies, which is like so rare that happened. It was hot. Like people were asking for sunblock.
I know.
I was like, didn't bring sunblock. I brought like woolly underwear, but I didn't like long underwear, but I didn't bring sunblock.
Not even a sun hat.
I know, exactly. Nothing, sunglasses, nothing. Anyway, so there we were, and they were helping us to create change in our physical DNA, to have our physical bodies pace and transform with this consciousness as it rises, because our physical bodies are here to sustain that, which we are for those of us who choose to awaken in this lifetime and move into this higher level of consciousness without dying, meaning your physical body moves with you, your physical body has to rise in consciousness as well. And they were working with us to allow us to do that.
Right.
So my point to your question is, does it matter? Yes and no, right?
Yeah.
So were they really important in our journey to Scotland? Absolutely, 100%. Is the ripple effect of what we did together with them going to ripple out into the oneness? Absolutely, 100%. Did we ask for it? No.
Yeah.
We didn't chase it. We weren't like, hey, dragons, we're coming.
We didn't even know until we got halfway up that mountain.
Oh, no, we did not know. No. And then all of a sudden, once we realized that it was this massive dragon portal, the clouds started to look like dragons. Like literally, we have pictures of cloud formations that now look like dragons. And I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah, it was so strange. It was literally, I felt like we were in the belly of the dragon.
We were.
It was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I think to your point, can the mystical be helpful? Yes. If your priority isn't the mystical.
Yeah.
Meaning like your main focus.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the way I used to be, where it's just like, like people, the way I used to be would be like, okay, when's the next Lionsgate portal? I should meditate with like a clear vase of water and a crystalline something or other and sit in the moonlight or whatever the hell they tell you to do. And I'm making light. I don't know what they tell you. But my point is I would chase all that stuff because I'd be like, ooh, maybe something really cool is going to happen,
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you focus instead on raising your frequency resonance, and that becomes your priority and your main focus, then the mystical comes in this
It's ironic,
fascinating way,
right?
In a way that's really beneficial to you to raise your resonance.
Yeah,
it's kind of wild.
For me, it's the. You used to say a thing in yoga, like when you did yoga, you practiced yoga to clean your body and still your mind.
Yeah,
but the side effect was you got a really strong, fit body.
Yeah. With like ripped abs.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of the same thing. When you do frequency work and your focus is about clearing and moving out what needs to be moved out, strengthening, centering, and you're diligent. The funny thing is, the side effect is that because your resonance rises, all this other stuff starts to come in. You're like, whoa, wait, what? Where did that come from? You're like, wow.
Yeah.
Magic. I call it magic because for me, it actually does feel like magic.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah. I mean, like, for example, this is just like a tiny little example that was making me crack up. So we arrive, we've done this thing at the Dragon Portal, right? Which was a surprise to everybody, including me.
Yeah.
So here we are, being honored by the dragons in the frequency resonance of them. They're doing work, we're doing work. Everybody's like, the whole mastermind's like, you know, on fire. I literally thought that's totally on fire. So anyway, that all happens. And a few days later, we arrive at our hotel in Edinburgh, right? What is across from the hotel? Like literally across from the hotel, like we could see them from our windows. Something called the Dragon Suites.
Yeah.
Come on. I was just like, what in God's name is happening? It was amazing.
Yeah.
But things like that happen. It's almost like a little
Confirmation.
little confirmation, like a little giggle from the universe being like, on the right track, check. So things like that is fun. And to me, that is part of the magic, right? It's because everyone thinks it's like the big thing. You know, you're like at the portal, all this stuff happening. And like people, I'm telling you, people who are in that GFC, they were like, Karen, I don't see, feel, or hear anything ever. And literally, I felt this dragon like breathing on my cheek. And he's like, I am not an active imaginer, okay? I've been in the military for over 25 years. This is not really what I do. This is more my wife's gig. But he's like, I'm almost a little bit embarrassed to tell you this. But this is what, he's like, I swear to God, I was aware of the dragon breathing on my cheek. And I'm like, did you like your dragon kiss? I don't know. You tell me. And this other woman was telling me, she's like, same thing. She is from Denmark, very stoic, does not see, feel, hear. She's like, I do it because I feel like I know something happens, but I don't have all the experience my friend does because she's best friends with somebody who does Spherical. She goes, but I do it because I feel generally better, more centered, and I feel like I have more opportunities. And she gives me this very rational list of like what she experiences with the frequency work. She goes, okay, so they were there on the mountain. I was expecting nothing. And I'm like, great. She goes, in the middle of this GFC, literally, this dragon picks me up. I can feel its talons. Like she goes, to this moment, I can feel it in my shoulders and put me on the back of another dragon. She goes, she was like almost crying when she said it. She goes, Karen, I don't see anything. I never feel anything. I hear nothing. And this happened. She goes, I don't know if I'm going insane or like if it was just, I was like, no, it just happened. She goes, she was like she was like beside herself almost, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing is, she was not looking for that experience.
No.
She wasn't like, I'm going to sit my ass on this hilly ass mountain and think, okay, I want to have this dragon experience. She was like, I hope I don't get bitten by the midges. That was basically the extent of what she thought, you know?
Yeah.
And things like that happened.
Yeah, it did. Well, I mean, that Scotland trip was phenomenal from the minute it started.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the magical, mystical things that happened.
Yeah.
We changed the weather.
Yeah.
For the entire trip that we traveled.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of crazy because on that trip, as Fiona's mentioning, like we went to a few places that were outside and we were hoping for clear weather at least because, you know, we have all this equipment. We have, you know, 45 people.
Rain.
Just no rain. Yeah, please no rain. So that way the speakers don't get like totally jacked up, that people can hear us and they're not miserable and cold. Can just be no precipitation would be amazing. And not only do we get no precipitation, we got like cloudless skies.
Glorious sunshine.
Glorious sunshine. Like people were getting
my
sunburned.
cousin that lives in the borders was still getting the rain.
Yeah, down south. And the weather followed us because literally the next day after we were in the Isle of Skye, one of our clients was in, I don't know, somewhere, and she was talking to somebody in an elevator or something like this. And they were talking about, they'd gone to the Isle of Skye. And of course, the client of ours was like, oh, did you like it? We had a really extraordinary time there. They're like, we would have, if we could see it. It was totally misted in. We couldn't see anything. This is the next day.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So anyway, the magic can happen.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing I'll just mention is that like, when your focus is on your frequency resonance, even your everyday can become magical. I know for some people that's going to sound so annoying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, and I'm not talking like love and light, everything's amazing. Everything's not freaking amazing, all right? But the thing is, you can have wonder.
Yeah.
And magic does show up in your everyday. Because it's not just about these experiences at the retreat that are heightened, that are amazing. It's really about that experience when you're in life and life itself, even in the like, I'm just going to the grocery store to get milk. things happen, you know, or even your experience of that changes and it starts to feel magical. I think that's important.
Yeah, because I'd like to come back to the whole Scotland thing in the retreat. And what was critical, I think, was that I'm pretty sure everybody in that group had been doing the work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They had been really diligent. Even when I was having discussions with them, the way they spoke about their life, they knew that they were responsible, they were accountable, and it was up to them to work on that. So the sense of the group was that they were doing the work.
Yes.
And so, like you say, when we all came together in that resonance, each individual person was holding their center. They were holding their neutrality as well.
Yeah.
And they were just working on themselves. Well, of course, yeah, we all just went, like a ninja, you know. And all these little magic things were just, oh, yeah, sure, we can make that happen. And it did.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
It's incredible.
And it would be just simple little things like, oh, it'd be great if we could find a place that would give us coffee.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, oh, I could do our coffee. Yeah, right. We stop at a little place and we get coffee.
Yeah.
The bus driver just happened to know of a place that we could
it's
get
perfect.
coffee. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Just little, like you say, the everyday things became really sweet.
Yeah, and even like, for example, I told the group, if anybody sees a unicorn sticker in Scotland, please tell me, because I would love to have one, because no one knows this, or at least very few people know. I shouldn't say no one. Very few people know that the national symbol, right?
The animal.
Animal of Scotland is a unicorn, people. Come on, how cool is this country? So it's a unicorn. I'm like, that is so wild, because Scotland is able to have the, it's not that everywhere doesn't have access to the different consciousness levels. In Scotland, you're more aware of them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really what I mean by that. And so I said, I really would love to have a unicorn sticker, so anyone sees one, let me know. So what did we get in the WhatsApp chat? Somebody found a store, and it literally was Karen's unicorn. Yeah. Like, seriously, like that is, like, we have it now, like a picture in a WhatsApp. It's literally Karen's unicorn. And I was like, okay, I think that's better than my little sticker. So things like this. And the fun thing is, as your resonance rises, you get to appreciate it. Like, you know, to me, that like tickles me. You know, I think that's like super delightful.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, so the mystical, I think what we're agreeing on, the mystical doesn't have to be something that's out there at a special time of the year with all these type of ceremonies. The mystical can come into your life daily when you do the work.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the point.
And then I also think when you come in with community, when you join with other people that are doing the work as much as you are, like as diligent or even more, then wow, watch out.
Yeah,
you know?
And what's awesome is when you have a community that's really strong, in terms of being able to hold your own center and be able to be neutral in order to like, everyone's focusing on their resonance rising. There's no like trying to save anyone. It's not like, oh, it's okay. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, okay, I'm going to hold my space. I see what you're going through and you can do it.
Yeah.
Do you know? Which is a very different, there's no enabling in a really weird codependent way.
No.
It's like, I'm holding my resonance. I know you can entrain to this and find it within yourself so you can rise. Yeah. Now that to me was spectacular in the mastermind.
Oh, and what we saw on the physical level with that, like we had people that were literally, they made an agreement, you can do this, and the other person was like, I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
And we watched them push people up mountains while the person just kept going. If you can keep going, I can keep going.
Yeah. And it was really fantastic. I mean, because you were saying, this one woman who was in her late 70s, it's very steep to get up to the old man's door. And this other woman was like, okay, if you're willing and I'm willing, literally she just pushed her up the mountain and like, and not, physically, and the other one was doing her part, and energetically they were matching each other and they both were receiving something, in terms of doing that. It was just this really...
Neither one of them were depleted.
No.
That's what was fascinating to me. I saw them at the end. Neither one of them were depleted. They were tired. They were physically tired. Yeah. They had both stretched themselves. Yeah. But they were not energetically depleted. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's magic.
Yeah, it is magic. There's no self-sacrifice. There was no victimhood. There was only like, we can. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Right, so at the end of all that, what are we going to do in the or what are you going to do in the GFC?
So for this GFC, what I'm going to do is help you to strengthen into your center. Okay, because the thing is, the mystical is not about escapism. If it is about escapism, then that's not actually helping you rise in your resonance. And what you'll experience is a distorted form of mysticism. So really what I'll be helping you do is to come into your center and then to amplify wonder. So when you start to experience some of the magic, you recognize it and it's really pleasurable for you.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So for those of you who would like to have a firmer center and more access to wonder of the magic of life unfolding, then I highly recommend listening to the GFC that's associated with this episode. And if you know someone who would be fascinated by this topic, please share it with them.
We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.